Now, Labour are set to unveil plans today to create jobs and to, in their words, turbocharge the pharmaceutical research and development. Sir Keir Starmer's party says under its plan, the investment in the new life science sector could be increased by £10 billion a year. Well, joining us now to tell us more is the Shadow Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Peter Kyle. Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Peter, tell us exactly what these plans involve.
Well, at the moment, we have a situation where global R&D spend in the UK has halved over the last decade, and exports and our export share as a market has fallen also very considerably. So we need to make sure that we can get back and start supporting our life sciences sector here. We've been working really closely with the life sciences sector, and we've come up with a strategy today which has been endorsed by the sector itself, and that includes long-term funding to make sure we can leverage private sector funding to capitalise on the best of government investment. That also gives stability into the long term, which is what people really crave. We're going to set up an office of regulatory innovation. That means that when innovations come through, whether it be the private pharma sector or through the research centre from universities or elsewhere, we can expedite it through the regulatory system so it can benefit the economy and benefit people in their health service really quickly. And we're going to make the NHS the best place to innovate. That means that when innovations do come through, the NHS has got to be a better place to adopt the innovation and spread it right through the country. That's why I'm launching this plan today jointly with Wes Streeting, our Shadow Health Secretary.
And just run that funding past me again. You talk about it being £10 billion and it will be helped by the private sector, but just explain exactly how you would fund that £10 billion.
So what we've seen at the moment is things like the lack of planning, ease of getting planning through means that there's a restriction in lab space, but also because of the instability I mentioned a moment ago, we're seeing a fall in inward investment into the life sciences sector here in the pharmaceutical sector. So what we've seen is that there's been such a fall in investment since 2012 that what we want to do, and we will aspire to, is get back to the 2012 levels of export for the pharmaceutical companies and get through to the global R&D share again. We'll do that by supporting the sector, and for that growth to return would trigger £10 billion worth of investment by the pharmaceutical companies themselves and the creation of 77,500 jobs to support that expansion. Now, this isn't us making it up. This is what the pharmaceutical and research companies have told us directly themselves they are capable of. What they need is a partner in government rather than government creating all the instability at the moment. So just one thing, we will reform the planning process so that planning for new lab space is prioritised and expedited through the planning process. Because right now we've seen things like AstraZeneca applying for investment from its global parent company being turned down for various reasons because they don't see Britain as the best partner for it. We missed out on a £350 million direct investment, which would have led to billions of pounds over the years to come. We need to capitalise on all of this, and that will create thousands of jobs and billions of pounds worth of investment.
So just to be clear, by offering support, if Labour was in government, there wouldn't be a single penny of taxpayers' money spent to generate this £10 billion of private funding?
I have been consulting with pharma companies, with cancer research charities and other parts of the life sciences sector here. They have not asked for, and they recognise the constraints on our economy at the moment. Their priority is not getting more money out of government in direct funding. It is creating the right regulatory environment. It's making better use of the money that already is going into the system. It is about reforming the planning system that we have, and it is also about stability in government. Because at the moment we have on average one new science minister every year under the Conservative government. We had one science minister for 9 years with the previous Labour government. This is the instability that has been really damaging the ability for pharma companies to inwardly invest and also increase our global share of exports. Our global share of exports has fallen from 9% to 4% in the last decade. We've got to get that back up to 9%. By doing so, we will create 77,500 jobs and £10 billion worth of inward investment into our country.
I want to ask you, whilst we've got you, about the rail strikes. Lots of commuters, frankly, in hell at the moment with relentless interrupted services. Labour, of course, the party of the unions. Do you agree with what the Prime Minister's saying? He's complaining about these rail strikes and the fact that these rail bosses, frankly, not only are they not delivering on, A, what they're supposed to do, provide a rail service, but B, they're not using the new minimum service legislation, which, of course, Labour opposed.
Well, I don't think Rishi Sunak is in a position to accuse anyone else of not delivering. He has failed to deliver on his 5 pledges, he has failed to get our growth into our economy, and he's failed to fix our public services. So that's the first point. The second point is that we said, the reason we opposed the minimum standards legislation is we said that it doesn't work in transport in France and all of the other countries that they're pointing to. We said that this isn't a problem you can legislate your way through, and we were right. What we see with this government, with the Rwanda bill, with the minimum services bill, they focus on legislation that will not work. And now we have another set of widespread strikes. What the government could be doing and should be doing is negotiating with decency, with diligence and statecraft to get our country through this problem, because it can be solved. We've seen when they apply themselves, they can sort out some of these industrial issues, as we've seen with the nurses. But with transport, we had Grant Shapps, if you remember many of his jobs back ago when he was Transport Secretary. He refused to meet the transport unions for 6 to 9 months because he felt that he liked the aggro and he thought it would be more difficult for Labour. What he did was create a very deep-seated set of problems and acrimony between the unions and government. Until they actually get around the table and solve this, then we're going to end up in the situation we're in now. You can't legislate your way out of these problems. You can only negotiate.
OK, but just to be clear, I mean, will you condemn bonuses of £1 million for bosses, for example, at Arriva, a 61% pay rise when customers and commuters have seen nothing but disruption for the entirety of 2023?
Well, of course, with the rail operators, we are putting forward a set of proposals as a Labour Party, as a prospective plan for government to fundamentally reform the status of the rail network in our country, because there are fundamental problems with it. Until we get that fundamental reform, what we're going to see is money being shoveled into the wrong places and not shoveled into the places we need it, which is investment in our rail system, and finally finding ways to keep the over-inflation increases, as we've seen in the past, being passed on to commuters who are long suffering.